Hello there, future Seji here. So I know that a lot of people wanted me to read this book so that if I didn't like it, then I could tell them and they wouldn't have to read this book. But yeah, I finished listening to The Hunger Games like an hour ago. And this video just comprises like my entire journey throughout. And so if you haven't read it and you don't want to be spoiled, I have a timestamp here, so you can skip to that and you can like listen to my non-spoilery opinions. But if you do want to get spoiled, if you want to know everything that I thought about the book, then you can just continue watching. Yeah. Hello everyone and welcome to this reading vlog. Today I will be listening to the Ballad of Songbirds and Zongvogels, or just the Hunger Games prequel. I'm going to be listening to the Dutch version because for some reason the English version is not on my audio library, but that doesn't matter. We're still going to turn up tonight. I'm also going to do some makeup because this book is about the capital and I can't be listening to it looking like this, a hot mess. So we're going to put on some capital makeup. I found these templates online, so that should be fun. We have about an hour before the audiobook drops, so it should be good. Okay, let's go. A couple of years ago, CoverGirl did this makeup collab with the Hunger Games, and so they have these looks here. And I think I'm going to go for District 10 livestock because who doesn't want to be a chicken or poultry? I look ridiculous. I'm going to try District 4 fishing, see if that works out. Okay, so this has utterly failed, but I'm going to try and improve it over the night. See if I can get things any better. Probably not. Come up. Yay, me now. I regret this. I look absolutely horrible. The silver is making me look really, really ashy. I'm going to try and fix it later on, but for now it's midnight, so it's time to start. So here's a fun story. They deleted the title at 1 past midnight, so I couldn't listen to it. I stayed up for 3 hours, ferociously refreshing the app, and then went to sleep. And the next morning I was just completely tired and decimated, and I stayed in bed for a very long time. Okay, bye. So I finished an hour of the prequel, and I've got to say I don't like Coriolanus. I don't like him. Okay, so here are my notes. Basically, Kor is part of the aristocracy in the capital, and because of the uprising 10 years ago, his family has now lost their entire fortune, which was invested in the weapons of District 13, and as we all know, that got completely decimated. And so now he's poor. So much so that even his cousin like eats the shell of a potato. Yeah, they still live in this huge house in the capital and they're trying to keep up with appearances. You see, Kor is obsessed with status. He basically wants to be seen as this perfect guy, and so he thinks a lot about how people view him, and he gets easily threatened apparently. Anyway, we have a new bad guy, the principal of the high school he goes to, who apparently knows about the misfortune of the Snow family and that they just basically are broke. And so I think he's also the one who gave the girl from District 12 to Kor to mentor. I'm guessing to ruin his chances at success, because apparently Kor is trying to get some sort of scholarship in order to get a great education and move up in the ranks of society. So that's what the stakes are at the moment. Kor is just trying to move up in society, and you have this principal who is making things harder. So, current thoughts. It's okay. I'm trying not to think about who Core ends up becoming and just seeing him as this 18-year-old boy who has to mentor this girl from District 12. And so far, I'm actually not that much of a fan of him. He doesn't have a lot of desirable qualities. I guess that's going to be like the character arc of this book, seeing him change from, I guess, quite superficial to good and then to bad. But yeah, I'll just have to see.
Vracht werd beveiligd door zware in het hangslot en omdraaide. Marcus de enige op het perron was. Het enige wat hij kon doen was, hij had haar weer losgeweekt van de groep. Marcus, doe nou. Ik verwacht het morgenochtend op mijn soldaten die de tribute moesten bewaken.
2 hours into listening and I've got about 7.5 to go. And I have to say, I am actually quite enjoying it. No, I do not like Cornelius. He cares far too much about his image and he really looks down on people, specifically people from the other districts. But even with people from the capital, he's like the guy in secondary school who you would work with during a group project, and you'll see that at the end of the project he basically just changed all of your work because he felt that he could do it better. That's the type of guy he is. So he's actually not very likable as a main character. So I actually wonder if Collins even ever had the intention of making him likable. If so, she's not really doing a good job at it. I mean, like, the only thing that you can, I guess, sort of feel sorry for is that his mother died at a young age and his father, who's dead as well, wasn't very affectionate. But I mean, like, you also have to have, like, a good personality for people to like you. On the other hand, you have side characters who are far more likable and maybe even a bit more interesting. You, for instance, have this other mentor called Sir Janus, and he's actually from District 2 and he really sympathizes with the tributes, and that causes some friction. And also, besides all of that, I think it's very interesting to see what's life like in the capital. So in that aspect, I think it's actually quite an interesting thing to have like a capital citizen as the main character, even though you may not like him. I feel like the Entertainment Weekly article that came out before this made it really look like, I guess, a sort of like redemption arc type of story. But for now, actually, it's not as bad as I had expected. And I think I mentioned that in the other video that I made, that Entertainment Weekly might have been exaggerating things, but yeah, we still have 7.5 hours to go. Also, I would like to note my favorite passage up to now, and that is when one of the mentors got killed. What? That was so good. I know that sounds very sadistic, but that was kind of like, for me, what the Hunger Games was all about during the time that I read it first, like as a kid. Just seeing like the brutality of people getting killed, like that action part of like this fast-paced someone just getting slaughtered, was, as a fan of horror, something that I really liked. I just really like the feeling of not knowing what might come next. Someone might die all of a sudden, and I think that shock is really something that draws me towards horror in the first place. So that scene was wild, and I'm really excited because now it feels like even the mentors aren't safe, you know? So I am going to take a shower, dress up, and then try and fix my face because I don't know if you can see, but my eyebrow is still blue. I'm going to try and do my hair and makeup again, but before I start, I just wanted to note one thing that I thought was also very interesting. I guess it's just really cool to see how the Hunger Games evolved, because this is like the 10th one, and them like trying to figure out what works best and their reasoning as to why specific elements are used within the games was just very interesting to me. But yes, hair and makeup. I have this fancy clip and a few pins as well, so I'm going to try and see if I can make something cool, and I'm going to do my face a bit more subtle. Silver definitely isn't my color. I'm gonna go for like red and gold and just see if it looks even a bit decent. at least it can't be as bad as last night.
En toen keek ze naar de lucht, alsof ze ergens aan moest denken.
Okay, the look is done. It's far more subtle than yesterday or last night, but it's definitely better. Anyway, one of my friends on Instagram, Baylaced, she's actually listening to the Dutch version as well, and we are having such interesting conversations together. It's so fun, like, being able to read together. And so one thing we were thinking about was, how is the perspective going to change? Because we're like now 2.5 hours in and the games haven't started yet, and are we just going to see the games from Cour's perspective, or are we also going to experience Lucy's perspective or other tributes' perspective? Also, one thing, we don't really know that much about the tributes, so I do hope that we might get like a couple of memorable ones. That would be really interesting, because now we only have Lucy and the tall guy from District 2. Anyway, I'm still quite interested in the story. I don't think there's really anything particularly remarkable about Colin's writing, but it's still entertaining, and that for me right now is good enough. So I'm going to continue and I'll just be knitting in the meantime.
Cordeline's klasgenoten stikte veel punten aan waar hij helemaal niet aan had gedacht.
I've gotten to the point where the mentors and tributes have gone to the arena just to look around and see how it's like. And then all of a sudden there's so many explosives, people die, people escape, and I'm not too sure how I feel about that at the moment, just because we haven't had any time at all actually to get to know the tributes as well as the other mentors. I think about 8 tributes and mentors died, and I have no idea who they are, so I don't really care about their deaths. So I'm just hoping that we can find characters who we can connect with. To be honest, at the moment, I don't really care about Coriolanus or Lucy. The only person that I feel like I could potentially grow closer to is Sejanus. Is that how you say it? Yeah, I feel like he's the only one that I could potentially feel bad about if he were to die. And the rest, we just don't really know them. So I'm really hoping that we get more character development with the tributes and even the mentors.
Zijn huiswerk en met Lucy Gray klaarstomen voor de Spelen.
3.5 hours in and just no. No. I'm not willing to accept this. So Cor and Lucy are now in love. What? They made out before she went into the arena, and I'm like, you know this guy for like 4 days and you're like, oh, the only boy in my heart is you. And I'm not buying it whatsoever. I'm not really happy with this. This is just not very believable to me. Also because of the fact that they barely even had time to really get to know each other. They had like a couple of 15-20 minute sessions to talk to one another, but that's about it. And Lucy knows that he's doing this basically to get like a good grade, you know, and she has to die, and now she's like in love with him. It's so weird, but I'm just going to continue. We have 6 hours left. I don't know what is going to happen. I hope that Lucy will get some more character development, because now it's just really focused on Coriolanus, and he's really not a likable person. You can see that he has somewhat of a conscience, but still like his ego and all, I guess, like the dark stuff in him is far more overpowering, and that just doesn't make him that good of a character or likable of a character, unfortunately. Like every single time something good happens to Lucy, he's like, she's mine, she's my trip, she's mine, she's like my property. If she does well, it's me they should be looking at. Everyone should just praise me. He's so self-absorbed. Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, 6 hours and 1 minute to go.
In het mentorgedeelte stonden 5 lege stoelen voor. Hij probeerde de benen te strekken en de armen op de borst te vouwen.
We have reached a twist. Oh my gosh. So, Sejanus... Sejanus... I'm just going to call him Sir. So, Sir is in the Hunger Games? What? I am baffled. I think this was a great twist, and I really hope we get to see another perspective, because Coriolanus is so boring and unlikable. It's just not a great perspective to write the story from. I honestly think Sir would have been a better perspective, because you can get to know Coriolanus through Sir, and then you also get to know what it's like for someone to grow up in District 2, a place that is actually quite close to the capital, and like experience capital life. He's a far better main character than Coriolanus, and I just really hope we get to see at least like a smidge of his perspective. I think I would otherwise definitely be disappointed. Anyway, I'm getting a bit bored with knitting, so I'm going to go downstairs and make some focaccia.
Niemand komt tegen hem op, want Lamina was de enige zichtbare tribuut in de arena. En dat maakt het punt extra.
See, the big problem here is that Coriolanus is the main character, and so the stakes that this book has are so severely low, it's almost laughable, because really the thing that Coriolanus is concerned about is having to move out of his lavish apartment, and that he might lose a bit of status because now everyone knows that his family isn't as rich as they pretend to be. And that's about it. I don't care about Coriolanus's problems. He has to move into a smaller house, and like that's the story, like that's the big thing about it. I mean, there are people dying in this arena, and it's like put on the backdrop almost. It's all about Coriolanus trying to win this so that he gets a scholarship for university. Like, I went into this story as openly as I could, and wow, I'm really disappointed. Like, who cares about him having to move into a smaller house? Like, he will still be living better than I do, so like, why should I care? It really doesn't make any sense, and I don't think that they're going to be switching the perspectives. I mean, we're halfway through the book and the Hunger Games. I mean, 24 people have died already, and I honestly could not name more than one person. Like, I don't know who these people are, so why should I care about them dying? We don't get to see like what's happening in the arena. Yeah, this is not a great book. But anyway, we continue. I'm just going to rest a bit on my bed and wait for my bread to rise so I can put it in the oven. Okay.
Want ze haalde haar bijl en mes tevoorschijn en poetste ze op met de vlag.
I tried out the bread. It was really good. It's far better than what I usually make, so I'm very happy with that. We are almost 6 hours in. We have like 4 hours to go, and to be honest, I'm still not feeling it at all. It's still so focused on Cornelius and him not having to move out of his penthouse. I feel like we are missing out on such interesting stories. I mean, Lucy could be a really good story. Sejanus, I haven't heard from him in like 2 years now. I'm just really bummed out, to be honest. But yeah, we're just gonna see what the last 4 hours have in store. But if someone would ask me if I would recommend this book, like now, I would say no, just because if you're a fan of the Hunger Games, for me, like the Hunger Games, one thing I really liked about definitely the first 2 books was that you didn't know who was going to die, and you got to know about all these characters and you learned to really like them. I mean, Rue was so precious, Cinna, even like the Glamour team at some point, I felt bad for what happened to them, you know? And here there's so little character development. You don't care if people die. You don't even know these people. Like, the only person that I might maybe care about is Tiger, but still then, like, the only thing you really know is that she's into fashion and she cares for Core, and that's about it. It's really bland. And I'm actually quite upset about it. There are so many interesting stories that can be told within the Hunger Games world. I mean, you have Mags, you have Haymitch, like a quarter quell. And even though we know what happened to Haymitch, I would still really be interested in hearing about his life. Wouldn't it be great if there was just an anthology of all these different people from different Hunger Games and hearing those stories? Like, even that, I would be so excited to read that, because even if some stories would be mediocre, you'd still have some good stories, I'm sure of that. I mean, Collins has proven that she can write interesting stuff, definitely with book 1 and book 2. This is just like a really big miss, and I'm really just wondering why she chose Coriolanus, because he really doesn't have much of like a character. There's not much there. He only cares about his status and he has a little bit of a conscience, and that's it. Okay, like I said, 4 hours left to go. I'm going to pull through and just get it over with, to be honest.
Om haar dorst te lessen en waste haar gezicht. Nadat ze haar met haar vingers had gekamd, bond ze.
What is happening in this novel? It has like the same type of chaotic energy as the last book, like at the end, because all of a sudden, like, the Hunger Games are won by Lucy. Coriolanus is like, yes, I won, even though he didn't do anything but cheat. They found out that he had cheated. It was like he entered the room with the principal and he had 3 pieces of evidence, and then it was like the conversation took 5 minutes, and then, as agreed upon, he went to the center to become a peacekeeper. And then it's like, chapter 21, he's a peacekeeper now, and I'm just like, this, I don't know. I don't know what to think. Well, I do know what to think. This is not a good book. No, this is not great.
Hoor je de trein, lief? Hoor je de trein? Laat op de avond hoor je de trein. Ochtend, zijn tanden ontbloot in het donker. Buiten de as werd langdurig getoeterd en de koplampen van vooraf.
Okay, last night I fell asleep listening to the book, which I guess says a lot about how I'm finding it. But Coriolanus has been in District 12 as a peacekeeper trainee for a couple of days. He's found Lucy and they're in love, and the thing that I hate so much about that, despite it just being like instant love, is the fact that he sees her as property. Like the guy who previously was involved with Lucy before she went to the games was like hanging out around her house, and Coriolanus is like, what is he doing in my territory? And I'm just like, no, bro, you kissed that girl twice. She's not your property. It's like there's no character development. Coriolanus has learned nothing. He's just only fallen in love, and that's about it. And I don't think that the 2 hours that I still have left to listen are going to be any better. I have one thing more to note. Basically, you had Lucy sing this song, the hanging tree guy song, and we get to see like the events of like what happened. Like this guy got hung and he was screaming to this girl like, no, go away. So Lucy wrote that song, which makes me believe that Lucy may be Katniss's grandmother. But yeah, who's her grandfather then? I hope it's not Coriolanus, because that would be, I think, a bit overdoing it, to be honest. And yes, what else? I think Lucy is going to die in like an hour or something, and then that's the thing that gets Coriolanus really pissed off, and then he becomes president and starts murdering everyone. I think Sejanus is going to get killed by Coriolanus. Oh, maybe like something Sejanus does gets Lucy killed and then he goes completely mad. But yeah, 2 hours left. Going to tidy the kitchen, dress up, and then I'll come back with some more opinions, I guess. Okay, let's go. Woo! This is delicious! I'm ready to deliver my final verdict. Okay, so the plot of the last 2 hours is a bit complicated, but here's what you need to know. Okay, so at this moment, Coriolanus is sort of dating Lucy, and Sejanus is also trying to become a peacekeeper in District 12. Things aren't working out for Sejanus because he doesn't like the capital, and becoming a peacekeeper is like not a good thing if you have like some morality. You know? So he decides that he wants to flee together with some other people from District 12 up north. He doesn't tell Coriolanus at first, but Coriolanus does suspect. So he tries to gain more trust, and so he tells Sejanus like, yeah, you're like a brother to me, blah blah blah, and eventually Sejanus confides in him. So what do you think happens? Coriolanus just rats him out. Automatically. He feels a bit conflicted, but not that much. He's just happy that eventually he'll be rid of Sejanus, because he suspects that when the capital hears about this, they'll send him back, and so Coriolanus won't have to deal with him at all. Anyway, before the capital finds out, Coriolanus still has to like act friendly and kind of like help him out basically with trying to escape. So the mayor's daughter finds out about this escape and she wants to rat them out, but Coriolanus ends up killing her. And this is not great, because if you kill like one of the most powerful people's daughter, then you might get in trouble. So he's really worried about that. He's worried that people will find out and that, I don't know, he gets killed or whatever. I don't know. The mayor's daughter's death is also a problem for Lucy, because it turns out that Lucy got sent to the Hunger Games because of that daughter. There was like love stuff happening. Yeah, so the mayor now thinks that it's Lucy who ended up killing his daughter, so he starts harassing her, and she feels that it's only a matter of time before he gets to her and eventually just kills her. Coriolanus's message reaches the capital, and they don't send Sejanus back to the capital. No, they hang him. So now Sejanus is dead, and Lucy is worried that she'll get killed by the mayor, and Coriolanus is still scared that they will eventually find out that he killed the mayor's daughter. So he decides to flee together with Lucy up north because he loves her and she's the only one he needs. And so here's where things go south. Coriolanus gets told that he did extremely well on this exam to become an officer, and so they want to take him to District 2 to continue his studies. And he's like, that's actually quite nice because then I'm closer to the capital and I don't have to be surrounded by all these plebs. But he still fears the fact that they might still find out that he murdered the mayor's daughter because he doesn't know where the murder weapon is hidden. So he still decides to go out together with Lucy up north. So when they escape, he's in like the wilderness for maybe like 5 minutes and he's like, this freaking sucks. He's like, there's like no plumbing, there's nothing. Am I going to have to fish? Disgusting. And he's like, he completely hates it and he's questioning his love for Lucy, and it's clear that he's not going to last very long. At some point he and Lucy find this really tiny house, and there he finds the murder weapon because one of the rebels actually took away all of the guns and had to hide them, but eventually he died, so that's kind of like where all the worries came from. So now basically all of his troubles are gone and he sees a clear path back to the top. Lucy understands this as well. One of the other things that she understands is that she is now the only person who knows that Coriolanus killed the mayor's daughter, and so she's actually the only thing that's in the way. And so she starts fleeing because she's scared that Coriolanus will kill her. And so he's like, oh, I won't hurt you. So he starts shooting, pow, 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 and he thinks that he might have hit Lucy, he doesn't know for sure. Eventually he gets rid of the murder weapon and he returns, and he's actually sent back to the capital. He wasn't actually sentenced to become a peacekeeper, he just had to stay there for the summer, but they just let him believe that he was sentenced to like 20 years of being a peacekeeper, and so he continues his education. And so here's the worst part. Sejanus' parents are absolutely distraught that he's dead. And so they're like, okay, let's adopt you then, Coriolanus. And he's like, yeah, sure, that would be great. And so he gets to keep his penthouse and everything is fine. And at the end, he poisons his principal. And that's kind of like the start of his ascent to becoming like the president and who he was in the Hunger Games trilogy. Now, before I wrap things up, I actually made like a prediction in one of my other videos. So I just want to see if it kind of aligned with the story that I just finished listening to. So yeah, let's check that out. Okay, here we go. Entertainment Weekly also released an excerpt, and now I am going to try and predict this entire book. Okay, here it comes. So you have this dude Coriolanus Snow who just has it all. He's a Snow, he's smart, he's rich, and his family is well respected within the capital. But wait, all is not perfect. How could this be? Oh my gosh! Little do people know, Coriolanus is actually hella broke. Anyway, students within the capital are assigned as mentors to the tributes of the Hunger Games. And guess what? Snow gets a girl from District 12. And thus the odds are not in his favour. Because as we all know, District 12 doesn't always do too well when it comes to the Hunger Games. And side note, to shake things up a little, this girl might be related to Katniss? Anyway, he gets to meet this girl from District 12 and things start off a bit rough. You know, with him living the life and she getting prepared to get slaughtered by children within an arena and all. Check. Yeah, things are not great. But then, against all odds, they become friends, and maybe even more. And so Snow doesn't want her to die. He tries to save her, but eventually she still dies. The consequences of his deed, however, change the entire Hunger Games. And so it starts to look more like a game show, and the mentors are now from the same district as the tributes. The latter is done as a measure to prevent people from the capital from getting attached to the tributes. Now this entire experience corrupts Snow down to the core, and so he seizes power and becomes the man we all know him to be. Fini! Okay. Okay, so I was wrong in certain places. Lucy doesn't die, but they do become friends against all odds. They do fall in love, and he does try to like manipulate and do everything he can to save her. And so yeah, he saves her. And I do think actually that she's related to Katniss, because she's like, oh, I really like to call this food Katniss. But yes, so I think this is actually quite interesting, because I spoke about something and it made me realize that this is one of the reasons why I didn't even enjoy it as much as I could have, and that's basically because of the lack of character development. I had expected to see Coriolanus go from like an innocent person with like morals and stuff like that to this evil person, but from the start we already know that he's basically this huge brat who thinks he's smarter than everyone else and deserves everything, and everyone is just like dummy dum-dums, you know? Like, there's no character development at all. And that's really my biggest problem here, because it's not interesting. I think this could have been like a short story or a novella, but I don't think that Snow's story is interesting enough to write an entire book about, especially a book that is this long. And the story is so focused on Coriolanus because you really don't get the chance to connect with all the other characters. I mean, like, Lucy was one of the biggest main characters, and we barely know anything about her. I don't even think that Coriolanus knew that much about her, but still he was like madly in love with her, and that just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And like I said, Sejanus to me was like one of the most interesting characters that actually had like a struggle, you know. I think the story would have worked far better if Sejanus was like the main character and you could have Snow as a side character, so that it's still kind of connected to the original trilogy, and you could like explore Sejanus, his struggle, and then his history with Marcus, and you could have like mixed in stuff from Snow and with Lucy perhaps as well. Another thing that I spoke about in the previous video was that I was taking the Entertainment Weekly article with a grain of salt, because I know like all these magazines are just looking for clicks and they're trying to attract people to read their article, and they really made it look like it was going to be President Snow's redemption arc, and I don't think that that was the objective of Collins, because if it was, she did a terrible job, because Coriolanus was so incredibly unlikable. Personally, I think that Collins was trying to be as objective as possible and just showing Snow's story from his perspective. And if I'm being really honest, I don't think that I would recommend the book. Like, it's not bad, it's not badly written, the story's just not interesting. That's just the bottom line of it. So yeah, that's basically my conclusion. But there's also one last thing that I would like to note, and that is that I thought like the only way that this could actually really work would have been if this prequel would have been released before like the Hunger Games, so that you didn't know that Snow would become this horrible person. And I still agree with that notion, but I do think that people would have just found this a very mediocre book, because like I said, there's no character development, and who knows, maybe the Hunger Games wouldn't have even been picked up. So yeah, that's everything I had to say. After this, I'm probably just going to do like a small non-spoilery summary. So this will be like the end for the people who watch like all the spoilery parts. And yeah, please do let me know what your opinions are on the book, on like the choice of having President Snow as the main character. I would love to chat about this in the comment section below. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye bye! Hello! So if you've skipped to this part, that means that you do not want to get spoiled, but you still would like to know my opinions on the book. And I have to say that I would not recommend the prequel because it wasn't that interesting. There was barely any character development, and yeah, it just felt very short. All of like the things that I enjoyed in definitely the first and the second book, with like the arena and like fights and like really being immersed in that Hunger Games experience, were not in this book. I rarely felt exhilarated or very invested in the characters, in the story arc. There were low stakes. It wasn't just interesting, in my opinion. So, like I said, I wouldn't recommend this. I'm actually quite bummed out because I was rather optimistic at the start of reading this book, because I mean, The Hunger Games was such a special series for me growing up, and like having an extra book, I was so excited about that, and now I am a bit disappointed. But yeah, please do let me know what your opinions are. Are you still going to read it? Have you already read it? Just leave a comment in the comment section below and we can have a chat. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in another video. Bye bye!